What's going on, guys, in the works? And today we are taking to the skies in the attack chopper. And lately I've been really interested in the helicopters in Battlefield 3. I don't know if it's just me fooling around with the scout chopper, but it kind of rekindled my interest in the flying. And you're going to see some KSR Railroad piloting, which we go on a pretty good streak here. And then I'm going to switch over to some gunner stuff. We're going to talk about choppers. We're going to talk about Battlefield 4. We got plenty to discuss about aerial vehicles. But KSR Railroad is probably my favorite in-game map, I think. And there's several reasons for that. I think it plays really awesome on Conquest. I think it plays the best out of all the Capture the Flag maps. And it's probably my favorite map to fly the attack chopper on. And the reason behind that is because it's not super flat or anything. I mean, there is some, laid to the land. It kind of has some dips and curvatures, stuff that you can hide behind when you get locked on. But there's lots of trees, and those trees can save you. They can also hurt you. I've run into my fair share of trees. If you've ever been my gunner in a random pub match, you know that when I was starting to get back into attack chopper piloting, I was really rusty, and it took me a while to learn that you cannot even tap the trees on this map. You've got to be precise. You can't even come an inch from the tree because the thing will suck you up, it'll destroy you, and you won't have a very good time because you will be dead. So you do have to learn to avoid the trees, but they can be a lifesaver. You can get in the trees, you can hide behind them, from stingers, because stingers are a big deal. The AA missiles can pretty much lock onto you from one spawn to another. So there's a lot of things that you kind of have to account for when you're flying these attack choppers now. I mean, you've only got one set of flares, or the ECM, whatever you're using, because they did get rid of gunner flares. And ever since then, I think attack choppers have always been polarizing. You either love them or you hate them. But ever since they kind of took that away, it's been so much more difficult to get a good run in your attack chopper. Now, if you're a good pilot, you can avoid stingers pretty easily, especially if you know how to land behind land formations. A lot of people don't realize that that's how these people don't get locked onto as much. Like, what they'll do is they'll make a strafing run, then they'll dip back behind the land as their ECM expires and they're getting locked onto. That way, that stinger missile that's coming towards you hits the ground. I mean, it's a pretty basic strategy, but more times than not, I get into a pilot seat or the gunner seat, and I've either got a gunner that doesn't know how to gun, or I've got a pilot that doesn't know how to avoid stingers. So it is pretty frustrating. And from a standpoint of someone who plays a lot of infantry, I understand why they took away gunner flares. It just made the experience for everyone a little bit more balanced. But it is really easy to take these things down on maps with AA, on maps with tons of stingers. And here's an example of what I'm talking about. You've got to get low so that stinger just runs into the trees, hits the land formations. Whatever you've got to do to keep that stinger from hitting you in the bum, because you do not want to get hit with those. But Battlefield 4 is coming out pretty soon. I mean, what, 6 months away? So not too long from now, we're going to be playing Battlefield 4. And one of the things that I think about quite often is how are they going to kind of balance out the aerial vehicles in Battlefield 4. Because it's all but confirmed that the attack choppers will probably be returning in the same capacity. I mean, if you look at the 17-minute trailer, I think it's got a Havoc in it at some point. So if I was a betting man, I'd say that the attack choppers are going to be making a return. But how do we want to see them return? How do we want to balance these things to make them so that it's fair on both sides? And I've actually got a few opinions on that. I would really like them to integrate the SOFLAM into the game more heavily. I wish that in order to get a lock-on, a steady lock-on, that you would have to use the SOFLAM. And we're going to switch over to some gunnery in here just to mix things up for the sake of variety. But my argument on the SOFLAM is actually twofold, because it would allow the choppers to basically remain with one set of flares. You wouldn't have to worry about giving them two sets of flares. Therefore, they remain a little bit more balanced, like DICE liked it whenever they patched it the first time. So you keep that same balance that you have in Battlefield 3, but you add an element of teamwork. So now if you want to lock on to aircraft, you actually have to have a recon guy who's willing to put the SOFLAM down in order to to take out these aerial vehicles, because it would increase the usability of the SOFLAM. It would make it much more important, so you wouldn't have to sit there and beg teammates to put down the SOFLAM. And in the same respect, it would make it so that it's a little bit more fair for aerial vehicles. Now, it would still be a lot of the quote point and shoot with the stingers if they want to leave stingers in the game. But another suggestion I actually kind of have is add back the AT fork. And it's been one of the things that I've seen a lot of people begging for. A lot of people thought we might actually get it as DLC at some point during Battlefield 3, but it's definitely something that I think is a very logical addition into Battlefield 4. I think it would make a lot more sense because the AT4, it takes more skill to use. It's not just point, shoot, boom, like the Stinger is. And a lot of people get mad over stuff like that. I've never been a huge fan of lock-on missiles to that extent. I mean, even in some of the aerial vehicles, it's kind of frustrating because it kind of removes the skill level. I mean, it removes the ceiling at which you can play at, because every once in a while a blind squirrel finds a nut, and that's what I feel like a lot of times when I'm getting locked onto. It's like, okay, I've avoided these guys for like 15 minutes. Eventually some noob with a Stinger is going to get lucky and catch me without flares, but that's just the nature of flying helicopters and stuff. I mean, every once in a while gonna get a little unlucky. I mean, even if you're the best helicopter pilot in the world, eventually you will go down. I've seen people go 50-0, and then finally they'll take their one death to a guy with a Stinger because they got a little bit too greedy, and the helicopter flies in and gets taken out by the Stinger. So I'm actually curious, what do you guys think would be a good way to balance choppers in Battlefield 4? Because I know it's definitely a difficult thing to do. I'm definitely not saying I'm an expert, but these are just a couple of the ideas I had floating around in my head. Let me know what you guys think, because I'm sure you guys have some pretty awesome ideas as well. And if you missed any of my past videos, here's a chance to catch up. I highly suggest checking out the Crisis 3 video. It's a pretty cool video that talks about things that aren't even related to Crisis 3. And before that, I actually did a video on the ACOG scope, which a lot of you guys might want to check out. So check either of those videos out, both awesome, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.